Hello, this is George Notchik. I recently had a viewer ask me how I might go about solving a complicated network that he had been working on apparently over a number of years and trying to figure out how to solve it. The network is like this. You have a number of nodes, say around a circle that would be the nodes on the vertices of a polygon. And the network that he had had like 12 nodes. I'm reducing it down so it doesn't get too busy here. But basically what the question is how would you compute the resistance, say looking in to adjacent nodes. You want to find the resistance looking in here, where, say you have a bunch of pegs on a board and you're stretching resistance wire, say each segment is 1 ohm between the nodes. Now, this is fairly simple and easily to do because you have this resistance here in parallel with the sum of these resistances. But the network is much more complicated than this. Imagine that at each node you also have a 1 ohm segment going to every other node. So we have a segment going here, 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 and then from here like this. You can see the picture. Every node has to connect with every other node in this fashion. So you can see that it gets fairly complicated. These are all 1 ohm resistors. Now we want to compute the resistance looking into this network. Now, the number of branches that you have in, if you have, say, n nodes, then the number of branches that you have is n times n minus 1 over 2. So we can see that, say, for a 12-node network, we'd have 12 times 11 divided by 2, or 66 branches. With various series parallel combinations. Now, I'm going to show you a way to do this. It's not very elegant. I haven't come up with a real elegant solution yet on this, but I do have a brute force method in which to solve this network. And it involves what we call delta Y and Y delta conversions. We have Y, WH, or WYE. So we have Y to delta. This is WYE to delta. And we can go the other way, delta to Y. Now I have a video called the 3 resistor network puzzle that you might want to look at if you want to familiarize yourself with Y delta conversions. I'm not going to go through it here. There is an explicit formula given, say this is R1, this is R2, this is R3, and you have 3 nodes, and there's a conversion where you can take it from a 3 resistor connection like a Y and convert it to a delta connection between those 3 nodes. And what happens in this case is you lose a center node when you go from Y to delta. And when you go from delta to Y, you gain a node. But there is a direct conversion. There's a relationship between the resistors here and the resistors in the delta network, and also going the other way. And I have some very nice forms that show you how to easily compute the resistors basically to find this resistor here, you take these two that are between those two nodes, you multiply them, you sum all the resistors up, and there's some ratios that you use for getting these. But I'm not going to go through that here. Just go look at the video called the 3 resistor puzzle. And I've discussed this in detail in that particular video. Now, what we're going to do is first build this up from a simple network, and then we'll move into more complicated networks of this type. So the simplest one that we have, of course, would be a triangle, but that's trivial. Let's start with 4 nodes. So we have a resistance between each node, and then a resistance across the diagonals. We have 4 nodes and 6 branches, as we predict from n times n minus 1 over 2. N is 4 nodes. 4 divided by 2 times 2. 4 minus 1 is 3. So a total of 6 branches. So this tells you how many branches in the network. Let's say now we want to find the resistance looking in here. Each one of these are 1 ohms, let's say. Well, this is pretty easy, as we can see. This is actually a planar network. Planar networks are completely solvable. So we could redraw this in this fashion. We have this diagonal, and then we can take this diagonal and go around like that, and then look into the network. And we can reduce this down by using delta Y and Y delta connections. And the way I would do that is we can choose, let's say, this as a Y connection. We have node 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I want to use node 3 as my Y, my neutral node in the Y. This is 3. This would be 2. This would be 1. This is 4. So you can see that right in here. Now, I'm not going to go through the mathematics to get the element values, because that's an awful lot of arithmetic and algebra, but I'm going to show you the method, and you can do it yourself. Just go to the video to get the conversion formulas, to get the relationships in the resistors, and you can actually compute it yourself. But I'm just going to show you, I'm going to outline how we would do this. So what I'm going to do now is replace these 3 resistors with a delta connection. So we have 2, 1, and 4. So putting in here, we've got 1, 4, 2, and 3. We have this and this resistor here, 2 to 1, 1 to 4, and I'm going to replace these 3 with the delta. So going from 2 to 4, we have a resistance, and we have a resistance from 2 to 1 and from 1 to 4. So you can see that when I replace this with a delta connection, what we have, this is my delta connection. See, we can get rid of the Y now, and we can write this in this fashion. We have a resistor we're adding there, there, one going across, and then we have the original from 2 to 4. So what do we have? We've converted our square with 2 diagonals to a triangle with each branch having having a parallel resistance on each one. So if we want to find the resistance in here. We have a parallel combination here, in series. So this is basically this, like this. And then we have this. And then that comes down to here. And we have a resistance here and a resistance here. And we're looking into this node. So this, we have this parallel combination, this parallel combination. These two are in series. So ultimately, the network, then we combine these two, we combine those two, and we combine these two. And we're looking into this node. Now we can sum these two, our series, which are in parallel with this, so we ultimately can get the resistance looking into the network. All right, now let's take it up a step and go to 5 nodes rather than 4 nodes as we have here. Now it's going to get a little more complicated because with 5 nodes, we have 5 branches. So we're going to start off with a pentagon. Now, we have 5 branches there. Now each node has to connect every other node. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Each of those are 1 ohm. Now, I'm going to designate the nodes going around in a clockwise manner. And we want to find the resistance looking in between nodes 1 and 5. Now, I'm going to deconstruct this and construct an equivalent circuit. So, to show you what's going on here, we're going to start off here. We've got our nodes. Okay, now, let's look using the Y to delta. In any of these types of networks, we can use Y delta, delta Y conversions to simplify the network and find equivalent circuits and reduce it down to something that we can easily solve. Now, I am going to look at nodes 1, 2, and 4 and do a delta to Y conversion. So what we're going to do is going to look at the delta connection with those 3 resistors. Remember, we can take a delta to a Y. So going between 2, 1, and 4, we can convert, and we create a node. Let's call this A. So, we've now eliminated 2 elements here, or 3 elements. We no longer have this. We've covered this in the network. Remember, I'm just taking this network apart and building up a new network. Okay. So, we've eliminated 3 elements there. Now let's look at doing a Y to delta on 2, 3, and 5. So now we're going to focus our attention on these 3 elements here. And we convert that into a Y. So we go 2, 3, and 5. So we got 2 to 3. We've created a node B, and we're going to go to 5. So now, we have now eliminated that. And in doing so, node 2 has now disappeared for us on this, and that's what we have left. Now, there aren't any conversions that we can use to simplify that, so we just put those elements in. So we have one from 1 to 3. We go 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 1. And remember, we're looking in here. Now, notice that we have a series combination here. So we can simplify this particular combination from B to 2 and 2 to A. We can combine these as a series and just put it directly from A to B. So we have that. Now let's look at what we have. We're kind of building up something here. If we look at this as being a base, and it's starting to look a little bit like a tetrahedron. So now let's do a y to delta conversion. Now we're going to go back, y to delta, and the y that we're going to choose is 3, 4, 5, and node A, and put our node 4 as the node that's going to be the neutral part of the y that's going to disappear. So now, if we look at the combination here, we're going to go 4. We're going to go from 4 to 3, 4 to 5, and 4 to A. So there's our Y connection. This is node 4, this is 3, this is A, and this is 5, and we're going to convert it into a delta. Now, I'm going to redraw this here. We've got node 3, node 1, node 5, node 4. So we have 3 to 1, 1 to 5, 3 to B, B to A to 1, and B to 5. And we're going to replace now these 3 elements in the Y configuration to a delta. So the delta then goes between 3 and A. So we have one going here from 3 to A to 5. So we go A to 5, and 5 to 3. So that's the next step that we have here. Now we're going to do another Y conversion. We're going to use nodes A, B, 3, and 5. So A, B, 3, and 5. So here's our Y. B is going to be our neutral. So we go B to 3, B to A, and B to 5. So we're focusing on these elements here, and we're going to now convert that into a delta. And we can see when we do that, going from A to 5, 5 to 3, and 3 to A, we just end up adding 3 parallel elements. So I'll look at this again here. We've got 3, 1, 5. We have our A node. We go from 3 to B, or I'm sorry, 3, put this in green. We go from 3 to A, we go 3 to 5 and A to 5. That's our green. And now we're replacing these three elements with a delta. So we've got 3 to A, 3 to 5, and A to 5. So we see now we have parallel elements in here. And if you can imagine, we have a tetrahedron. So 1, 5, we've got A, and 3. So what we have, and here's our node A. I've combined the parallel elements in here. So now we see we have a tetrahedron, and we're going to look in here. Now, we can do this one more simplification. If we choose this as being a y, we can see if we convert it to a delta, we now have a network that we can solve. This y we replace with a delta. We go an element here, an element here, and an element here, and we eliminate the y. So now we have three parallel combinations. So I can take this now and write it node 3, node 1, node 5. So we have an equivalent resistance in here, 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 and we're looking in here to get the resistance. So we have one resistor in parallel with a series combination. So the network in principle can be solved. You just have to go through all the numbers in doing the Y delta conversions to get the equivalent resistances. Now, I'll do one last one here. Now let's look at a 6-node network where we'll have the nodes on the vertices of a hexagon. Now with the hexagon being 6 nodes, we have to have 6 times 6 minus 1 divided by 2 branches. So it's 5 times 3 or 15 branches is that we need. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So we have 15 branches, all of equal resistance. And we want to find the resistance looking in between nodes 1 and 6. Okay, just as before, we'll construct a new network, an equivalent network, as we deconstruct the original using Y to delta conversions. So the first thing I'm going to do is focus on nodes 2, 4, and 6 and look at these elements that form a delta. So we're going to go delta to Y on nodes 2, 6, and 4. Now, keep in mind, since all the elements are the same value, if you look at the Y delta and delta Y conversion equations, if the resistance are all the same in the delta, the resistance will all have the same values in the Y. They're not going to be the same as the original values. The new values will all be equal in the Y branches, just like they were all equal in the delta branches. Now, so we're going to go between 2, 4, and 6, and we're going to create a new node. We'll call it A. So we have an element going from 2 to 4 to 6, and we've created a node A. Now, let's do the same thing with nodes 1, 3, and 5. So we go 1 to 3 to 5, and we're going to construct a delta there. Or from the delta, we have a delta, and we're going to now construct a y. So we go 1, 3, 5, and we're going to create a node B. So 3 to B, 1 to B, and 5 to B. So there. Now we can eliminate those branches. So I'll put this back in. So that's what we have left in the network. Now, what I'm going to do here, oh wait, we got this. That disappeared between 3 and 5. Now, what we have left are these three through the center and the perimeter. There isn't anything more I'm going to do at this time with those. So I'm just going to put them in to the new network. So we have an element going around the perimeter, and as you can see here, we're getting a cube. So far we have a cube. I will highlight and you can see that our network has now been converted into a cube, and we're going to look to find our equivalent R there. Now what about these three other elements? What are those? Well, if we look, we have an element from 2 to 5. So 2 to 5, we have an opposite diagonal. 1 to 4, we have this diagonal. And 3 to 6, we have this diagonal. Now, in the way that I've chosen my deltas to y's, we know that these elements here will have equal values. These here will have equal values. And they will be the same because it was the same type of delta that I chose. They each had a value of R. And when we go to a y, we have new values, call them R1s, but they'll all be equal. And the two deltas I chose are exactly the same type, they're congruent, and so we would expect the element values here and here on the y's to be the same. And the fact that the diagonals have the same value, we can invoke some symmetry properties. I discussed solving a cube in one of the videos, and you can look at the method that I used for doing that, and we can invoke symmetry in here and ultimately get what the R value is. Now we could have maybe chosen some other elements, deltas and y's, and ended up getting a different figure or configuration on a network reduction. Now a lot of this, it just takes some experience to play with it and to see which path might lead you to the result quicker. But in principle, you can do it. You can see that solving any networks like this basically involves doing y to delta, delta to y type conversions. Now, that's as far as I'm going to take this because it takes an awful lot of algebra and arithmetic to compute the new element values when doing these conversions. And if you're curious, you can do it on your own. But as you see, that as we increase the complexity, the number of nodes, we're going to have to play with how we choose our deltas and our y's to give us something that we can work with. Now, I've thought about this more. This is kind of a brute force technique. My gut feel tells me that there's probably some elegant way of doing this. I don't know. I need to look at it further. If someone has some insight out there, appreciate you making a comment to the video and sharing it with us. But right offhand, I don't see a way to crack this simply and elegantly other than this brute force technique that involves an awful lot of computation. Many times when you have these types of problems where there's a lot of symmetry, it's a matter of how you look at it that gives you some insight and makes the problem just fall out almost trivially. That might be the case here. I don't know. And if anyone has some insight that has cracked the problem, other than using these brute force techniques with Y delta conversions, please share it with us and comment to the video. Thank you, and I hope this helps.